Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com, and in this video we're looking at two new versions from the PRX family, both in gold. One at 35mm, one at 40mm, and then both being Powermatic. So in this video and on this channel, we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive on these timepieces, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout the video, if you have further questions or are looking to buy the watches, check out a link in the description down below to the product pages. But without further ado, let's jump into the video and take a closer look at these watches.
When you think of the 1970s, what do you typically think of? Maybe bell bottoms, the music revolution with rock and disco, and vibrant color palettes that have led to some aspects of a design to age great, and others not so much. Yet if you frame that same question and position it to watch design, you of course think of that same concept of daring color schemes, but also you could not go long before mentioning that the decade was responsible for one of the most legendary design themes in watch history with the integrated sports watch. Among the many brands that have a piece following this format of the era, Tissot introduced theirs with a C-Star model that was known as the PRX as well, an acronym standing for precise, robust, and 10 ATM of water resistance. Ever since the PRX was reintroduced, part of its endearing quality beyond its value pack proposition was its lovable 1970s charm. Of all the configurations, I feel the one that succeeded the most in establishing this endearing quality of the 1970s were these gold tone versions, originally unveiled as quartz-powered variants. However, just recently, Tissot finally launched the long-awaited gold tone PRX Powermatic options in 35mm and 40mm, and today we take a closer look. Now, starting off for what's new here with these PRX models, now we'll get to the case itself because that is pretty straightforward compared to what we've seen in the past, but let's talk about the dial texture itself and just what is being presented here with that waffle-styled type of pattern. Peering through the flat sapphire crystal, which although it does not obscure the dial, it does allow light to gather on its surface in direct light, we take up view of the bold golden top backdrop setting the stage for a familiar dial layout. A black printed minute track runs along the outer edge broken up by gold tone applied indices, marking the hours with rather minimal lume. Cutting the 3 o'clock marker short is a framed and faceted date window opening up to reveal that white date disc. At its center, gold baton style hands feature a central groove partially housing a small strip of lume, while the thin tapered second hand passes over the familiar minimal PRX dial text of Tissot name and year of foundation at 12, and then the PRX Powermatic 80 at 6. Typically, the PRX dial layout provides simple yet clean legibility, though on these models, time telling can take slightly longer given the almost completely gold layout. But all in all, this dial really is a standout and works well with combining that gold tone with that waffle texture. Looking at the general breakdown of case sizes here, you're looking at first the 35mm option, which comes in with a diameter 35mm, thickness of 10.93mm, and a lug-to-lug of 39mm. To discuss this one first, because this is the one that I think many people when they look at 35mm might have a bit of shock and thinking I can't pull this off, but just for context, it's just shy of 45mm when measuring at that final end link point. Now you can't necessarily say it's going to go to that full extended point, but these watches do wear larger than what they're going to indicate. For context, that's around the same lug-to-lug dimension as a Rolex Datejust 36mm, which I think wear even larger than 36mm. So to say that this wears like a 36 on wrist and is going to wear similar to that of a Rolex Datejust, I don't think is far off by any means. So don't be so scared by that 35mm. If you do have a medium-sized wrist and smaller, and like the styling of mid-20th century design and classic case dimensions of vintage watches, this is going to be a great size for you. And one final point about the 35mm is this is the direct one-to-one case size from that original of the 1970s. Shifting into the 40mm case option, this was the first case size that was presented when the model family was reintroduced a couple years ago. Comes with a diameter of 40mm, a thickness of 11mm, and a lug-to-lug of 44.6mm. In very similar fashion, this is going to extend out the theoretical lug-to-lug if you do measure to that farther point, right around 51mm. I wouldn't say it wears to that full extent, but these watches are going to wear larger as well, 40.5 to 41mm on wrist. But given the integrated style, there is just something almost ineffable about how these are able to present themselves on the wrist compared to traditional lug watches. Finishing on both of the cases is going to be among the best in class. All the sides of the primary surfaces are polished, including the bezel that is lifted from the core case and a long bevel cast along the entire length of the case that shines impressively under the light. The crown is seated within the case slightly, offering a compromise between protection and accessibility while being signed with the Tissot T and offering 100 meters of water resistance when paired with the case back. The bracelet transitions seamlessly into the case and demonstrates one of the best propositions in value for money bracelets on the entire market. The same brushing on the central case is here, but to add some flair, the inside of the links are polished, making the turn of the wrist of the watch under the light showcasing its reflective details. Now the bracelet is pin adjusted. It does have a quick release mechanism on the back if you did want to switch out the straps, though it is going to be more limiting on a gold tone variant compared to some of the stainless steel variants in terms of what might look appropriate. And then also you aren't getting any micro adjustment here, instead getting a butterfly style release clasp that does a great job in being seamless and looking very integrated on both the front and the back of how it meets the case, but also meets one another at the tail end and looking rather dressy on the flip side. But that does potentially leave the possibility open for some that might not be able to get the perfect size for their PRX. Now set beneath the safety of an exhibition case back, we have an excellent and proven caliber from ETA with some additional tricks up its sleeve with an extended power reserve, and this is going to be known as their Powermatic movement. Specifically is going to be known as the ETA C07.111. So this is a modified ETA 2824 caliber, and it drops down the beat frequency from 28,800 vibrations per hour to 21,600 vibrations per hour, or 3 Hertz, to maximize the energy stored in that mainspring to 80 hours. These movements also come with a patented Nivacron balance spring that will aid in the basic protection against shock and magnetism while being regulated at the factory, but does drop the traditional regulating pins in the process with this new Powermatic variant. Another point that I will mention when talking about the Powermatics, there's a lot of discussion about these not being serviceable movements, they're being plastic parts, but let's talk about a couple of the considerations here. Yes, this does have a synthetic-like escapement for the .111s, but in terms of reliability, serviceability, this watch can be serviced. Tissot is one of the best in the industry in terms of disclosing this level of information when it comes to their servicing costs. So I would strongly recommend just doing a quick Google search, look up Tissot servicing costs, and you'll see a whole price sheet for all of this. So this is not a secret that they will just keep to themselves. It can be regulated, but it is going to be more complicated than a traditional regulating organ that you might see with a basic at a 2824. In terms of some other general features here, you are getting a quick set date function, as well as hacking and hand winding, hacking stop in the second hand when you pull the crown to the farthest position, and a power reserve of 80 hours. These are now movements that have been as tested as much as any in the entire industry, now being in millions of watches. And we did test both of these examples across 5 different positions. They were both running within plus or minus 5 seconds a day. The gold tone 35mm version running at +3 to -4, and then the other 40mm version running at +4 to -3. So now to unpack looking further at these PRX Powermatic Gold versions. We'll begin with some of the cons and then transition into some of the positives. A couple things that come to mind is going to be the micro adjustment and lack thereof for these bracelets. I have never had an issue with sizing a PRX to my wrist, but I know for some out there that are not as lucky as I that could have some issues with sizing these up. Also, I'll just mention the idea of gold. It's either going to be a love it or hate it type of concept, and with going with a PVD effect, it is not going to be gold all the way through to its core. So this is stainless steel with a gold top, so that does leave potential for scratching and maybe showing some of that wear, but I do find Hamilton, Tissot, and some of these entry-level swatch group brands, some of the perks of being part of a larger organization is that they're really able to deliver, I think, the top PVD treatments for their watches. Also, finally, what I'll mention is that you are dealing with a slight premium compared to the traditional Powermatic versions. These are coming at over $800, so not going to be insignificant in terms of money, but still pretty good value, all things considered. But considering that this is around $100 more than conventional Powermatics, that is enough to maybe draw the line where it might not be feasible for some people out there that are liking these. But now shifting into the pros, I think if you're talking about somebody that likes a gold tone watch under $1,000, this would be the first on my list to probably recommend to somebody. Textured dial surface is something emblematic of these Powermatic versions, and I think it looks great with this gold tone variant. Automatic movement offers 80 hours of power reserve and is going to be competitive within the price range and really setting a standard for what power reserve should be. And also being a Swiss-made caliber with pretty good regulation out of the box based on my anecdotal evidence of trying on hundreds of these PRXs to date. And then also coming with 2 different size variants right out of the gate is quite nice for this PRX family. We've basically seen the alternation of 35mm, 40mm. To have them both now available, I think, is a nice option for people that are looking in this direction. So what is the ultimate take on the 40 to 35mm PRX? I think it's another great addition to the collection and something that was absolutely needed given the quartz versions now being in the model family for some time. But even looking further out in scope, I think another area where these watches need to get major kudos, and I think where they represent, is just being that gold tone watch. And having a gold tone watch is not just a style of watch, it's almost a embodiment of an idea and persona in itself. For those that are not a fan of it, I think you know who you are. But for those that love this styling, typically you're talking about an arm and a leg type of payment structure to get into one of these gold style watches that look this good on the wrist. For this watch under $1,000, I think that's where it really separates from the competition.
But all right, guys, thank you again so much for watching. That's all we have for this one. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that, and it does help out the channel. Also, if you are interested in buying this watch, you can definitely check it out on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is an authorized dealer of over 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. Also, how we're able to fund all of our productions here and on our main channel is through selling watches. So if you are in the market for a watch, we'd absolutely love to have your business. We know you can buy a watch pretty much anywhere nowadays, but it allows us to keep doing what we're doing, and we love what we do. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.